I'm here to speak to you, and my talk is about the power of choice. I'll start with a little story. I was 22, and I remember my father walked up to me one day and offered the key to our home. Yes, I lived with family like most young adults in this country. And I looked at him a little stunned, right? And he said, "What? You can choose to come home whenever you want at night. We're not going to stay up." And I stayed silent and I continued looking at him. And he said, "Yes, these keys will give you the choice to return when you want, but I know that I've taught you enough, enabled you, and empowered you for you to make that decision and hold this access with the responsibility and the dignity that it deserves." It's interesting because, roughly this was 18 years ago. And for even adult children in our country, and more so women, families are really protective, right? And if you add disability into the mix, we're basically looking at this act as something not just radical, but unheard of. But I know that this act, but many such acts by my papa, my mama, my entire family, taught me that there's always a choice, a decision that you can make, and making that decision brings responsibility and accountability to your life. Why does this matter to me? This matters to me. And what did this teach me? I was 15 when I was diagnosed with an incurable, irreversible, progressive, degenerative eye disorder, which meant that it would render me blind, and it did. And people often ask me that would have been the most devastating day of your life. And I said, well, I really don't remember what I was feeling, but I know the heartbreak that my family was going through. Despite the tough circumstances, my family collectively made a choice to move on, to not give in to the disability, and to decide that I would live a fulfilling life with blindness. This choice, of course, was not easy. It also meant that I had to now learn to read, write, walk, everything again in my teenage, that I had to learn skills that would enable me to live without sight, right? But I also didn't realize that I was rejecting a lot of things. I was rejecting being unproductive, I was rejecting sitting at home, I was rejecting refusing to be educated, and I was rejecting not having an ambition. Everything that people think people with disabilities will bring to their lives and their families. Of course, I learned early on that while I was in this journey of skill building, rediscovering, learning, and honoring my own decision and my family's decision, I would have to collectively build a network of support. The unwavering support of my family, but also a circle of friends, mentors, who could love me, guide me, and hold me as I discovered my path and my journey. It's a little funny because I rejected many more things as well. You know how you typically see an image of a blind person wearing big dark glasses? And I rejected that. I was like, if I'm going to wear goggles, they have to be stylish. I basically made a choice to invest hours when I was in college. I was like, okay, studying, I'm investing hours. Skill building, I'm investing hours. But there's a definition for me for looking good, so I will invest hours and learn how to organize my accessories or the tons and tons of earrings that I've got. From small to big decisions, that one single choice made me make multiple choices in life. When I was searching for my career, I was really floundering, right? I was entering undergrad, and that's when I had that diagnosis. Every day was a new day because every day I could see less. And I realized that I didn't have a full, clear picture of what my career could look like. And some wise people turned around and said, "Oh, your brother is also blind, and he's successful. He's done his MBA. If he can, you can." And I turned around and I said, "He can, I can, but I do not want to. And that was the next major choice I made. It's not like I had my path charted out, but I at least knew what I did not want to do. Eventually, I acquired a post-graduation in mass communications and media, a very, very visual field. And the institution and otherwise had these questions about why a visual field. How would you make films? Why broadcast journalism? How would you do advertising campaigns? And my only response to them was, this is my decision, and I will ensure that I create access to achieve it. It's very interesting because this then led to me becoming a journalist, working in the development space, founding my own organization, and so on and so forth, right to the global advocacy that I do. And I still remember, when I was moving into the development space, the question, one very well-meaning person reached out to me and said, it was on the phone, and they said, listen, I'm really worried about you. And I want you to know that you are a woman with a disability, and if you decide to work for disabled people, for women with disabilities, you are going to get typecasted. People are going to turn around and tell you, you did this because you could not do anything, because you basically had no choice in life, and so you took this. And I remember smiling and laughing, and I said, that's a very interesting perspective. Because for me, I'm making a choice. The choice to build change, and building change brings power. And for me, that was really essential. I founded my organization in 2017 after working with many other nonprofits. And of course, it was again a decision to start a journey with my own vision. And people say, oh, you lost your sight. And I said, but I never lost a vision. And with that, we started building leadership programs for women and youth with disabilities. Now, why leadership programs? We're still talking about inclusion, but where I was coming from, I had experienced the journey and how it changes when you enable someone, empower someone, invest in them, believe in them, and hand over the decisions of their life back to them. And this is how Rising Flame and the leadership programs came into being. Why all of this becomes very critical and important in our society today? Because when we look at people with disabilities, and this is not about rural India, urban India, this is a global phenomena. We often infantilize people with disabilities. Infantilize? We treat them childlike. I can walk into the room with a help and I can be super accomplished, but somebody will turn to that person saying, is she comfortable? Does she want to eat? Is she thirsty? The continuous childlike behavior is one side of the coin. The other side is this direct and implied perception of beggars are not choosers and people with disabilities are those. It has very serious impact, right? Because it implies that people with disabilities are not capable of choosing what to study, where to work, even who to fall in love with and where to have relationships. It constantly tells or gives us a message that we as disabled people need to settle for less, settle for things that others choose for us, settle for jobs that are not enough paying or satisfying or bringing contentment, even settle for relationships that are unequal, imbalanced, and at times even abusive. But what is this when we constantly tell people, oh, you're different, you don't really have a choice. You're diverse, you don't really have a choice. You're a woman, you don't really have a choice. You're disabled, you don't really have a choice. Where does all this stem from? This stems from very simple power structures. A big part of patriarchy and ableism is to take back the control from people. Patriarchy takes the control back from women or control away from women. Ableism treats people with disabilities as incapable. And what we need to do is challenge these power structures, bring back equality. Equality of what? Equality of opportunity. We need to bring back enabling environments, which is supportive environments, where every young person has a level playing field to perform, to be themselves, to achieve, and to decide. I'm often reminded of this quote from Stephen Covey. I'm not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. And it really makes me believe now, I wasn't making all of these conscious decisions at 15, but I know now that it's really your decisions and not just your disability, your diagnosis, or your circumstances that shape you. And so today when I travel the world for work, when I have created impact in touched lives of people in over 35 countries, I founded my own organization which provides opportunities for women and youth with disabilities. I've even married for love. When I do all this, I know that the decisions were mine and that I'm living life on my own terms. Because for each of us, it's important to remember that all of us have the power of making choice. The choice that gives us autonomy, that gives us power, but also that makes us responsible and accountable towards our own lives, towards ourselves, but also towards the larger world. Thank you.